everyone. So I'm here again for another Freedom to Feel conversation with Tricia Parido. I will introduce her briefly, as I always do, and then I'll ask her to introduce herself. So Tricia is a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, coach, writer, speaker, founder of Turning Leaves Recovery Life and Wellness Coaching. I love that name, turning leaves, those two words together. There's something about that. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
something deep into it. I'll be asking you more questions. But for
Mhm.
now, in your own words, who is Tricia?
Oh, who is Trisha? You know what? I am probably one of the most genuine people. There's a lot of genuine people out there, but I literally show up with 100% myself in all transparency,
Yeah.
without any reservation anywhere I am. So, you're going to get whoever I am today. But I am a wife. I'm a mother of 5 grown adult children. I have 5 grandchildren that range from the ages of 14 to 1. Um, and but you know what? I'm just a recovery lifestyle enthusiast, and I'm so passionate about helping people experience living the way that they desire. Um, and it's just, you know, I just am that, right? Like I love to just witness other people living, and I love to witness change and growth and shifts and morphs and all the things.
Mm, I love that. When did you discover that this enthusiasm for helping others and to do what you do today? How did this come to you?
Well, I think it was, because I'm so connected with earlier versions of myself. I think that I can look back at areas and categories of my life as a child where that was always, I was always wanting to be the helper, right? Like
Yeah.
I was a competitive swimmer at a really young age, and one of my teammates was deaf, and I learned sign language so that I could, support. I always wanted to, like help my friends in their emotional, struggles. But,
Yeah.
I came to where I am today to really help people through my own recovery journeys, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been in a recovery journey of some sort or another, you know, um, for the majority of my life, which we can get into later. But, at 43, I found myself needing a recovery journey that looked like ending a physiological addiction. And so in that recovery process, where I found so many gaps in service because they were, that be, because the standardized ways of doing things, right, didn't meet my
Yeah.
needs,
Right.
right? And that's not to say my needs were higher, but it's just to say they didn't meet my needs. They didn't meet
Right.
me where I was. They didn't meet me where I lived in my community. They didn't, there were just so many things that were just missing from
Right.
what my needs were, that I went to school and started studying. And so as I was uncovering these things that I needed in my education, you know, it really started to unveil a lot of things for me. One being my the empathetic being that's inside of me, right? Like I
Right.
definitely have the ability to, to connect with people.
Yeah.
And so that can be a really dangerous spot. And that can be a really hard, heavy life. But it illuminated that for me, which then allowed me to see what I needed there also to start
Right.
protecting me.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of layers to it, but again, I just got so passionate. There are so many different things that standardized treatments just don't take into account. And
Right.
and there's so many things that practitioners and professionals don't take into account because everything has to fit into this nice, neat
Right.
little box,
Right.
and
Right.
and and as human beings, we naturally want everything to fit into our nice, neat little designed box that we've created. And when it doesn't fit right, then it gets uncomfortable. And then we know there's like friction and discord and all the things. And so, in my journey is how I got here. And it really fuels the passion behind me, helping people, live life the way they desire, right? Like my motto, my mantra is, this is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however I want it to.
Yeah.
I get to choose.
Yeah. I love that. You see, that's interesting. That's why I titled this video podcast conversations, Freedom to Feel, because it always goes back to that. When it comes from the human experience as an individual, that's what we want. We want to just be ourselves, feel our feelings, express them, and trust whoever is listening, who is around us, that they will embrace that too. It just accept us for who we are. And often, I know it doesn't happen, and that's where so much conflict and pain is really come from, not feeling accepted. And I have to say that, and I'm one of these people, like so many of us, especially women. I don't know why, but if we are really, especially, was designed, educated to fit boxes, to always smile, to be polite, we can't do so many things. We got to act like women, whatever that means. So, do you feel that's actually more challenging for women to be free in that sense than men, or?
I think I hope this doesn't rub anybody the wrong way, but I think we as women make it harder on ourselves, right? Like, we choose, I work with a lot of women, and it's like, I don't have time for my recovery journey, whatever it's from, right? I don't have time to learn how to live for myself first without feeling guilty, selfish, punished, or restricted. I don't have time to cultivate, nurture, and condition the level of emotional intelligence I need to get where I want to go, because I have a spouse, I have 3 children, and I have a business of my own, and whatever else, right? Like, and there's this whole thing that says to us, like, we have to do and be for everybody else before ourselves. And I get it. I was raised that way also. I get it. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We can still we can be everything that we love being for the people that we love, right? But we can still do it in a way that allows us to honor ourselves, our needs, first. But what the piece that's missing is we don't take the time to really, and I'm going to say this, to genuinely, authentically, transparently get to know ourselves at a level below the surface. We just don't. We just don't. If you ask somebody, like, how are you? Right? What do you get? The answer you get is, I'm fine.
Yes.
Fine is the most ambiguous answer you can give to that question.
So true.
And it's like, but how are you really? Right? And if you say you're irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, or bothered, do you truly know why you're sitting in that space? Because so-and-so said so, or said X, Y, and Z is not the real answer. It's really not. That's the surface answer. That's the external answer. What about what's in here?
Yeah, I agree, Trisha. That's a powerful message. How do we learn to do that? Go deeper, to honor ourselves, get to know ourselves, actually. What is the best practice that can lead us to that knowledge?
Well, that's a loaded question. I mean, I generally will take my clients on anywhere from a minimum of a three-month journey to 9 to 12 months, right? Because it takes like gaining some understanding, right? Like, so we have to, like, start doing some self-observation that is not surface observation. And we
Right.
have to start asking questions, and we don't know how to ask the questions. So if we're not working with somebody that can help us ask ourselves the right questions, and then
Right.
explore the answers, and then uncover everything that's under all of those answers,
Right.
and then also spend time with how you engage in living, right?
Yeah.
And that means I find people broad brush. So the first thing, if you really want to get to know yourself, is stop broad brushing,
Yeah.
right? And what I mean by broad brushing is, you know, including absolutely everything, right? Like, oh, I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
Are you depressed? Like, let's talk about that. Because
Right.
usually and I'm sorry, I'm just using this because it's super mainstream, right? Like, because people will say that about themselves, but they don't meet criteria. There's a lot of criteria to meet to be clinically depressed.
Right.
Sure, a
Right.
lot of people do meet criteria, so don't get me wrong
Yeah.
there. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, but if oh, there's nothing is right, everything is wrong, and woe is me, and let me just hang out here and ruminate and wallow and languish,
Yeah.
and so now all of a sudden it's like, and I start picking it apart. Well, let's talk about professionally. Well, no, work is fine. Okay, well then get it out of there, right? Like, we've got some things we can celebrate over here. We got some things to lighten your load a little bit. How about your marriage? How's your marriage? No, my marriage is totally fine. Blah blah blah. Right? And I've gone through this process with so many people, and my favorite one is I did this with one of my clients, and it was just like this peeling back over time, right? And when we got to the base, the foundation of it, it was literally her relationship with one person. And mind you, she was depressive. She had suicidal ideation. She had chemical addiction happening. And it was all around this big thing. And this big thing, she had herself as the black sheep, outcast, everything. And then everybody at every job she had was, this everything. It was just all encompassing, broad brushed it. And it really just had to do with her relationship with one person.
Wow.
And based on one situation.
Yeah.
And it just boom, attached to everything. And it was just the most freeing thing to see and to witness, right? So they're not all that long. They don't all take, years to get to the bottom of, but it's a very systematic process. So for me to give everybody like, hey, like, do this, right?
Yeah.
I have all my clients start with what I call a whole health survey. And it's just kind of like a psychological evaluation, but it's super common language questions in 6 primary categories of life, as I hold up 5 fingers. But it's categories, that it looks at and asks you, some very specific questions, so you can see where your risky areas are.
Right.
And then you can start to, look at that. But always asking yourself why, right? The power of inquiry is a powerful tool, right? Like, I feel this, why? Right? What's driving that? In this moment, and then why, right? And then when you feel like you get to the bottom, well, okay, what's driving it, and how much of it is actually stemming from me, and how much of it's from an external source, right? These external sources, I am the locus of control theory by Julian Rotter. When I learned it, and the way that I've been able to add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph it, right, into my life and into all of the work I do, right? I see that, we as beings assign and attach so much meaning, so much purpose, so much value in things outside of us.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I need that external validation from so-and-so to feel worthy.
True.
No. Right? Like, I rely on alcohol to bring me peace, joy, comfort, and relief at the end of a stressful day. No. Right? Like, it can't be that purpose. I'm sad. I'm going to have ice. It's all external. But also, what is that that's making you sad is an external thing also.
Right.
We're just bringing it inside. So the words that you heard growing up, that, so-and-so is fat, right? That was said by some male somewhere someday, right? Like, oh, look at that, overweight person, right? And you're a young person and you hear it, and then you have your own perspective, and then you attach it. And then as you're growing up, right? Like it all comes and it all has a place, and that that started with an external source.
Right. It's so
Uh,
true, Trisha. Yeah.
yeah.
So true. I love the inquiry, the question, observation questions. That makes a lot of sense. The process, and also you said that earlier about the layers, and it's actually it's uncovering. It's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. Although for some people it becomes a realization, and they just kind of change everything. But it's not. It doesn't happen often. It is a process. It has been for me too. It's uncovering. Um, so is that what where the turning leaves
Mm.
words that came from? Is that the it's almost like a symbology of that, like going transformation. I want to understand. I love the term though.
If we look at, my journey, my manifesto, my life, right? I've had, so many seasons
Yeah.
of living, and there has been so many different transitions, transformations, um, and all of which I would never trade for a different experience, right? So, as a child, you know, um, adolescent and a young adult, somebody who experienced, numerous sexual assaults, um, um, rape, domestic violence, childhood emotional neglect, tragic. Well, I witnessed tragedies nobody should see. I had a lot of tragic loss, etc. So there was a lot of things, and so in there, I did a lot of
Yeah.
growing, changing, shifting. Right, I was born somebody that had a lot of control needs.
Yeah.
And I was always an overachiever. I was highly intellectual, being somebody that could read, write, do arithmetic, and play chess at 4, and,
Wow.
classical piano at 5, and competitively swimming before the age of 7. Like there was a lot of that. And then there was a lot of that other painful, hurtful stuff. And so in there was a lot of things. And then you get to that awkward adolescent age, and my dad was killed. And so then I went into junior high school grieving, right? Like significantly grieving. And so then you got all those different categories, right? And I connected with so many different people for so many different reasons. I had all of these different, clicks, but really it was, when my father was killed, we were doing the funeral, right? I already had like a weird relationship with food, and food is my longest, relationship, recovery journey, whatever. That people pleasing, codependency, and attachment needs, right? Like those attachment needs. But it's where I also learned the self-soothing of alcohol, because I was like, wow, everybody's like, hanging out and talking. And I really was just in this trauma space. So I grabbed a 6-pack of beer and, just gave it a shot. And you know what it did? It helped me feel better. Right. And then it helped me with, social, being able to feel like I want to be social and not, talk about all of the bad things I had experienced, and, yada, yada, as I was going into junior high and high school, and, things like that. And I also wanted to be able to ignore and not, lean into the bad things that were happening in that space as well.
Right.
So, I just, there's just so many. So the turning of leaves has been the turning of all of my seasons, because they all played a part in forming who I am today.
Right.
Again, anorexia was one thing that I had to, that I overcame. Then there's learning to live with body dysmorphia, right?
Yeah.
Learning to use traumatic experiences to help me be a higher functioning being,
Yeah.
right? Like, so there's just been all of these seasons. And then my spouse and I, like, we raised 5 kids, and there's, just this, you know wow, kids give you a run for your money, right? Like,
Yeah.
our oldest daughter, she had AML, so she had, we, which is a leukemia. Sorry, and so during that period, right, like her freshman year of high school, right, we're doing chemo and bone marrow transplants, and
Yeah.
like the whole 9 yards. And there's just so many seasons and so many different ways of seeing how you embrace living,
Yeah.
and there's always a way to do it better.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
always a way to do it better. And it's
Right.
how do you move into that higher level, that higher vibration, that higher frequency, and
Right.
how do you do it? And the cool thing is, I've uncovered some foundational skill sets, tools, tactics, etc., that for me allow me to do it all the time. So I'm
Right.
constantly in the work, like constantly evolving and constantly changing. But it's so amazing to see, like this ability to engage with living, and not be reactive, and
Right.
be
Right.
responsive to all things that I do, and to,
Yeah.
just to feel that calmness, to feel that
Mm.
acceptance, to greet every breath with grace and dignity, and
Mm.
loving kindness and patience,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I love all that. Yes. I want to say I'm sorry for what you went through. It's when I read about that, it's very sad. I can't help it, but it's just I get emotional a lot of times because it's just always brings me back to spirituality every time I'm faced with my own suffering, and then others like yourself. Do you have spiritual beliefs or practices? What are your spiritual views, Trisha, of this
Ooh,
reality of this life?
I have a very eclectic
Yeah.
I have a very
Love to
eclectic
hear.
spiritual, right? Like I was brought up I was brought up, in a non-denominational, church congregation,
Yeah.
surrounding, where, I find beauty in all religion that I've had the opportunity to explore or to learn about. I do believe, I am a Christian, but I also am very connected on a spiritual level, with the universe, right? Like I believe in all of it. I
Yeah.
believe it's all there, right?
Yeah.
Like it just, in my opinion, I believe that it's all there, and we have the power to, and the ability to be as connected as we just as we seek, as we
Yeah.
desire, as we ask for, as we, you know,
Yeah.
um, and I do believe that manifestation does not is definitely an adjective, right? It
Mm.
does require action. So anybody
Yes.
that's like, oh, I'm manifesting, you know that's great, I love that,
Yeah.
but you better be in motion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yes.
better be in motion,
Yeah.
because if you're not in motion,
Yeah.
you're not manifesting anything.
Right.
You're wishing on a prayer and a dream, right? So and so, generally speaking, I'm very, I think that spirituality and is a very personal,
Yeah.
part of everybody, and
Yeah.
I just value and appreciate it so much.
Yeah, me too. That's why I ask the question often. It's spiritual practices are very much my daily. I mean, it's infused in everything I do.
Sure, you got to have your gratitudes. You got to have your, your prayers or your meditations, and/or all of the above. And I have about three different things that I do every morning that kind of tap me into all my
Right.
things.
And even the when you mentioned, I know you talked about, I read about you, and then you mentioned being not being reactive. That's also spiritual practice to me. If we are aware enough and to do that, to just stop before we react, or go into something, kind of guided by thinking, especially thinking that's not really clear. So that's a spiritual practice to me. And when I read that, and you just mentioned again, that sounds very much spiritual. So there's something else I want to a question that I want to ask you that I ask all my guests is for this video interviews. What is your idea of freedom? When it comes to feelings and emotions, how do we become free in that realm? It is speaking of, we just talked about being reactive. So, and feelings and emotions are very much related to that. What is freedom to you from that perspective, Trisha?
Freedom to me, right, is the ability to experience living the way that I desire, right?
Yeah,
Seeing myself experience living the way that fills my soul. But
yeah,
it's also, allowing myself to experience my environment in a way
mhm,
that serves me, but
yeah,
also allowing my environment to receive me in a way that one serves me, but also serves them.
right.
Um,
Uh,
and
yeah,
that to me is just like complete freedom. It allows me to not be reactive. It allows me to not operate in this stance of the stance of a judger.
yeah, yeah,
It allows me to remain open and in what I call the stance of a learner. I'm
yeah,
always open to receive, and to understand, and to appreciate, and to accept. Um, and I think that's really what keeps me out of the reactivity, because I am a German, Irish, Scottish, Sicilian. Taurus, we're on the cusp of Gemini, who is a first to last and only in a middle child. And
yeah,
again, it goes all back to my story, right? I definitely had have that past
yeah,
that will say I can get scrappy with the rest of them, and I did a lot of fighting in my life, right? I've done a lot of
yeah,
fighting in my life,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
don't do that anymore. I don't even fight for airspace any longer.
yeah,
If I'm in a conversation and you know
yeah,
and it's not going to be reciprocal. I mean, I always ask, like, are you really open to receiving what I think, feel, right?
right,
Especially if it's a differing or differing view, because
right,
I think it's important, right? Because also I've learned, because I had a good season of my life that I truly believe that my thoughts, feelings, emotions, opinions, beliefs, needs, wants, dreams, desires were not seen as holding any value,
right,
not having any validity.
yeah,
They weren't worth. I wasn't worthy of realizing them. They weren't worthy of being heard or right. Like, I felt very dismissed. I felt very
yeah,
disposable.
yeah,
And so this was a big transitional place. Right now,
yeah,
I cherish. I
mm,
cherish what's in my heart. I cherish what's in my soul. I cherish my knowledge. I cherish my gifts. So
yeah,
if somebody doesn't want to receive them, that's fine with me. I'm
right,
actually super gracious when somebody tells me, like, wow, no, thank you.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Because then I get to hold on to them, right? To give to
yeah,
somebody else that
right,
that does, and I don't exert energy, precious energy.
mm,
It is very exhausting to give energy somewhere where it's not being
right,
received, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
reciprocal.
yeah. You see, that's a powerful message. It's something that took me years to learn to to be quiet. Sometimes around certain people, and I say the things, express myself the way I wanted to express myself because I know I would not be heard. How do we balance this, Tricia? This desire to connect deeply with others, especially like in my case with my husband. I can't have a lot of these conversations with him, deeper conversations. So how do we learn to balance seeing the other for what they are, accepting them exactly the way they are, at where they are, and at the same time, kind of being truthful to ourselves, expressing ourselves as well. Is that possible?
Yes, I do it every day,
Yeah.
because, like you're saying, right? Like, my spouse, he's he's super open and he's super amazing, right? But there was a period in my transition, in my journey,
Yeah.
where it was like, you're talking woohoo language, lady. Don't give me your woohoo, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's about making sure that, one, right? Like, we have to truly be active listening. Like,
Hmm.
people say they're actively listening, but if you're actively listening, there's that inquiry, right?
Yeah.
Like, make sure that you have a full understanding. make sure you share with whoever you're, conversing with, what your perception or perspective or take is on what they're sharing, so they feel valued and validated and worthy also, right? Like, get them to tell you, like, yeah, you know what, you got it, you got what I'm saying, and wow, and thank you so much for listening. Because as soon as they start to feel that, right, we got to lead by that example. Right?
True.
If you know what you're longing for or desiring in a relationship, right? Like when it comes to that level of communication, you've got to give it. You got to give it good, and you got to give it all. And then ask, right? Like, I know, like, you think I talk in woohoo language, but if I try and share it with you in a language that you'll understand, are you open to receiving? Right? And then, dang it, try to talk in his language. Right? Like, we can't, can't, my example is I would walk in and be like, oh, the LMFT and the, LCSW and, all these other, acronyms or, things from our industry. If we bring our industry speak in, and they don't know. Right. We can't bring industry speak in. We've got to talk at the same, like at a different level, right? Like, it's got to be, and then we got to be willing to explain it if need be. And they can't feel like, I don't know. But anyway, so that's part of it. But the other part is just accepting that you are two unique beings. I find that especially with couples, like, people want, like, oh, you got to believe what I believe, like political parties or, or, whatever, right? Like, everything is like this. And no, you know what? You want to be looking at your partner and say, you know what? I don't even care about any of the things that are, other than the fact that I feel so blessed that I get to witness this person experience living. I love their hobbies. I love their hobbies for them. I love their friends for them. I love their interests for them. Right. Like, let your paths be like this. Let them be cohesive. Let them go, like, boo, come back together. Be accepting. Be willing to experience. Be open to experience. Or things like, I go to one live football game a year. Like, it's not my jam. Like, I'd rather watch it at home, like, get up, go to the bathroom, eat, or like entertain myself with something else. But I at least go to one game with my husband a season, right? It's something that, half of the family really enjoys doing, and the other half of us are like, go join, your jam, right? But I still show interest, right? I still show, because I am interested. It's something they're interested in. I don't care to sit and watch 4 quarters of a football game, but I'll go watch, like, it just depends. But you know what? That's great. It's great. I don't begrudge him. So many people would be like, oh, you're just going to go off and do that. No. Be accepting, be open, be happy for them that they have things that fill them. And then allow yourself to be happy having your things and having them be just your things. Right. I think, people look at life balance incorrectly and very narrowly, right? In the work that I do, we have 14 categories that create a whole life balance that we examine. We throw away every example, right? We erase it all and we fill in the blanks, because you know what? Spirituality to me is different than it is to you. And I don't need to fill my cup in my spirituality cup with anything that isn't for me. And the same with family and, all the different categories. And you want to define them and know what they are to you. And then you want to learn how so many different things like touch all of the different categories. Because if you're doing something that is, I don't know, recreational, but that recreational item may actually be touching your social, right? You want to know, like, hey, this is actually social also. Like, oh, it's filling my social cup and my development, right? Because I'm learning, and how else is it filling up and that's balance, not this home, work, and health in the middle. That is so, again, broad brushy, shallow, surfacey, right? You gotta be willing to, you gotta give yourself time, right? It's not something that you can just go, oh, I want to know myself at a deeper level. And I want to, transform all of my relationships to being this like deep, wonderful thing. It takes time. It takes time because you have to cultivate it. Then you
Yeah.
got to nurture it. Then you got to condition it. Then you got to invite people to, experience it,
Yeah.
right? Help
Yeah.
them change, shift, morph it to fit for the anyway.
I love listening to you, not just the words, the wisdom, and then the body language too. It's almost a
Yeah,
dance in itself. I love
right.
that.
Well, it's the Sicilian in me. I don't know. I
Yeah,
never met
well,
my grandmother on my father's
well.
side, but I apparently a lot like her. Very demonstrative.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, meaningful fun, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Everything you said, I love the piece of active listening. So if I want to receive, I wanted my husband to listen to me. I need to listen to him as well. I need to understand where he's at, where he's coming from, and then speaking in his own language. I mean, there's so much that we can do there.
I think also, and if I could
Yeah.
I just want to give this
Yes.
with that while you're talking about that, the active listening, right? Assertive communication is something else that I want everybody to just really super quick open up your perspective, right? Around it. Let's get it broader. Assertive communication is open, honest, genuine, transparent, and authentic communication at all times,
Right. Right.
right? So that you have to have that to be an active listener also. Anyway,
Oh
sorry.
wow. So it no, it's a deep work of learning about ourselves, being clear, transparent, genuine, authentic with ourselves first, because we can't really pass that on if it's not already here.
All of the work has to be done with the relationship you have with yourself first.
Right. Right.
So many people come and they're like, everything they say, everything, oh, immediately we're
Yeah.
going to that external. It's that
Yeah.
partner, that spouse, and
Yeah.
the kids. And
Mm,
we gotta know
yeah.
that's all your externals. We gotta do the relationship with yourself. We gotta get rid of all the conflict with your,
Yeah.
all of these things first.
Yes.
We can do some of it simultaneously if we can get the categories down right, right? If we
Right.
can get the focus right, and all of that. It's doable. It's very doable, but you have to be willing to really break things down into smaller things. And I'll have people with like 6 different like
Yeah.
pieces of paper, right? Like these are my categories,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
okay, but it helps not have everything be so big and voluminous
Right.
and derailing and
Yeah. It makes some Yeah, makes small steps. It makes a lot of sense. And I mean, what really in your message, I see that you're saying over and over again, it's all about doing the inner work. We need to get to know ourselves. And that is a very powerful spiritual message. And I know it's not, we don't want to live as spiritual, as you said. We all, it's very personal. So spiritual can be so many things, but it's
Mhm.
basically that. That's interesting. The more I study about spirituality, that's what I see, knowing oneself. So
Mhm.
there's something else I wanted to ask you. Let me see. I made some notes here. Yes. So this really caught my attention when you say, why living without habits fixes everything. And of course, you gave me a hint there, but talk to me about that, Trisha.
Well, okay. So, in a nutshell, number one, if you were going to be taking a note, right? Habits are impulsive action without much thought,
Mm, yeah, yeah,
right? We habitually make our bed every day. We habitually brush our teeth.
yeah,
Right? Like it's an impulse without much thought.
yeah.
So that's a habit. If you really
Right.
want to be living life without much thought and on impulse, then okay, great. But let's talk about it in a different way, right? In a little bit deeper of a way. Um, Habits create rigidity,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They create a pressure to perform,
Right.
and they deepen and solidify even more our reliance on things outside of us
Mm,
to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness. You can pick the rest of your own adjectives, right?
yeah.
But if and I did a lot of this conversation during the pandemic, right? The uh, the mom entrepreneur who was staying at home, and had the kids and everything else, who, couldn't get to her 6 a.m. spin class because, and this is, kind of like after the pandemic, kids going back to school, but the kid had to stay home because of the runny nose, right? So
Yeah.
the school was
Yeah.
like, no, you have to stay home and you have a clean COVID test, right? Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Mom couldn't go to 6 a.m. spin class because kid had to stay home sick. Mom's whole world fell apart, right? Like she was like annoyed that she couldn't go to her spin class. Like if I can't go to spin, I can't think. It's the same with the coffee, right? If I can't have this, I can't think. I don't wake up. I don't this. I don't that, right?
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a lot. You give a lot of power to that spin class
Yes.
on your ability to live the life that you've chosen to live, right? Like, boom. And so even our good habits cause an issue. So I don't want you to give up your, those things that are good in your life. I just want you to add some bendability, flexibility, pliability, right? Like, and I want you to have a whole lot more resiliency.
Right. Right.
Right? Because guess what? You could take that 6 a.m. spin class that you couldn't go to because your child is sick and you've got, right? Like, and you could go, cool. Right? When my hubby comes home at 6 o'clock tonight, I'll go to the 7 o'clock spin class. All's good. Right? Like, get flexible, move things around. You can still have everything you want, but don't be so rigid about it. When we are rigid, it's super easy to just break.
Yeah.
Right.
So true. So true.
And so, and it's that same thing, right? Like, it might be, again, I habitually drink coffee every morning, right? Like, oh, I could never do it. Sure you can. Just don't drink coffee for 3 days. You'll be fine, right? Like that whole that physiological addiction goes away. It's up here and it's all what you're telling yourself. Like we can, it's a process or a behavioral addiction more than it's a chemical because caffeine comes out of your system, right? Within the period of time and you'll be fine. I tell people, like really the only withdrawals you really got to worry about, alcohol and benzodiazepines. So your Xanax, right? Like, but so we want to, we don't talk about that sugar, things like that. But so think about your habits. What are those things that you are so attached to that you have to have at a certain time or in a certain day? And what is that and why? And so you want to look at what is the emotional purpose that I'm assigning to these things? Because they're outside of me. They have no emotional purpose.
Right.
If it's a person, things like that, right? So when we can live without habitual way of being, right, it fixes everything. It opens up so much freedom, so much flexibility, so much openness, right? It makes so much more room in our life for other things, for new experiences, for more to come out of.
Right.
But we put ourselves in all these little boxes.
Right. Yeah. You see, that's another powerful message, and that I very much agree with. I'm just wondering if habits can make our lives also easier in a sense of automatic things that we don't have to think, we just kind of do them. And then that's one thing which I like about habits, but I do see the danger even with that, right? Are they connected to addictions? Actually, Tricia, they are habits, addiction.
So you're talking about, like, I like my habits because they make things easier because I can get things done without thinking. So now you're saying I actually, right? If you're doing laundry, do laundry. It's not time to think about the 3 projects you've got going on for work, right? So, when I'm, talking about this, like, even my things that I do at the same exact time every day aren't habits. Like it's very I bring in thoughtfulness to it, right? I notice that I'm getting the blow dryer out. So I notice what I'm doing. I am well aware of what I'm doing to a fault. Sometimes my husband will say, can you hear me? Like I'm, like in the same room and I'm like, well, but I'm paying attention. Like I'm giving my focus to this, right? Because because I want to receive what I need to, or I want it to come out right, or
Right.
whatever. But so if we're doing things without thought,
Yeah.
is that really, I mean, does it really make life easier?
Yeah, so true. Yeah, thank you for saying that too. I was thinking that way because maybe I heard enough that, yeah, but that makes a lot of sense. A lot of times I wake up and I automatically make the bed instead of looking at the tree or the flowers out the window and enjoy just being, right? Yeah,
So if you're gonna make the bed first, then do it that way, right? Like, but
yeah,
do it purposefully, do it thoughtfully. Like, I'm gonna make the bed so that
yeah,
I can go and enjoy the trees and the birds, and this is done and out of the way, right?
right.
So you can still do it exactly the same way you've always done it, but just do it with thought and purpose and
Yeah.
connectivity. We want to be connected with the things that we do. And
Mm, yeah,
right, if you're driving,
yeah,
like noticing, I love, and of course I
yeah,
can't do it when I'm driving, the
yeah,
driver, but if
yeah,
I'm in the car, I love to, I mean, we travel the same road frequently to go see kids, grandkids, whatever. Um, I always see at least two things new, at
yeah,
least two things that I'd never noticed before.
right.
And it's, I think it's a shame that we don't. We get in the car and we're so engrossed in whatever's on the radio or whatever talk show, or we're multitasking. We're listening to, and I'm not saying don't listen to the radio or things like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so many people utilize that space to listen to their podcasts or whatever. Right now, we're not focused on driving. If you get annoyed by somebody that cuts you off because maybe if you were paying attention, right? Again, we want to be connected with what we're doing, or we're missing out on
yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message. Thank you for saying that because I do a lot of spiritual work, a lot of these healthy practices, but this is one that I have not been actually paying attention to. So you're just calling my attention to that, being connected with whatever I'm doing in the moment. And I often do that, but I notice about the bed now that I wake up and I'm just rushing. Kind of making the bed. I'm not thinking about the sheets or anything. Just, I'm not connected to that action. So mentally connected. So that really, you just paused me now. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Trisha. I
Mhm.
mean, everything you say actually sounds very spiritual again. It's very, very, very. It's like a spiritual practice. So we're almost at the end. I know you have another appointment, and then I lose track of time too. I want to mention that on your website, I love the you mentioned today earlier, but I love that statements that you make. Addictions, negative attachments, and habits that hold us hostage are all seated in a pressure to perform and a reliance on something outside of ourselves to provide peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, and worthness. And you have been saying that throughout the conversation. You have that statement on your website that I had to copy here. And then I also, of course, love your bio, everything you say there, the way I love. I mean, I love everything about you. It's very
Aw,
genuine. Yeah,
thank
it's really
you.
beautiful. Thank you. No, thank you for your presence. And I see also the on your website you have the top outcomes with TLR. Turning leaves recovery. So some clients have shared some of the results, and I love the slowing down part and then staying present. They feel more seen, heard, accepted, confident, and valued. So self-acceptance, celebrating my wins, I'm more resilient. All these beautiful pieces of life that a lot of times we don't get to enjoy because we are not doing the work, the inner work. We are not doing
Mhm.
what we're not committed to it. So thank you for reminding me and everybody else who watched this video of these values. And then for the end of the interview, I'd like to ask you just one question, the ending question. But before that, I know that you're also releasing a 6 month program, Loving Your Physical Self. Have you released that yet, Trisha?
It is open for enrollment, and it's very deep. It's very deep work.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not, it's not for the faint heart, because, this is like the deepest connection with the mind body. And so, it has it's just unique to each person, right? So there's a set process that we start out in,
Yeah.
and then after that, it becomes organically different for every person, because there's only so much as a provider, as a practitioner, that I can
Yeah.
do that is standardized in this space.
Yeah.
And our relationship with food, again, our relationship with the reflection in the mirror, our relationship with, our physical body, our relationship with how other people see us, right? Because a lot of us are really worried with how other people see us, right? And I'm going to be judged, that, like, it's just, it's different for each person, but I'm telling you what, it is just a truly amazing, freeing journey. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds very much like it. And I thank you for being open to life, being open to get to know yourself at that deeper level. It's not easy. I know it takes a lot of courage, commitment, that time factor that you just mentioned. It doesn't happen overnight. So thank you for doing that work, Tricia.
Thank you.
And two questions before we end the conversation today. What is one message you wish, if there is one message you wish everyone that watches this video to take with them, what would that be?
I'm going to give you my mantra,
Yeah.
because it is my mantra. I also offer it to everybody else in the world. And that is, again, this is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however you want it to. You get to choose, right? So take that, and just know that if it doesn't feel right for you, it's not right for you.
Yeah. Yes, it doesn't feel right. It's not right. Is
And if you
that
feel trapped, there's always a way out.
right? If we go against that intuitive feeling, right? Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. You just kind of taught me so much today. We're always learning, right? When we think we know, we're like, wait a minute, I just met Trisha, and I actually don't know a lot of things. And that's humbling in a very good way. So thank you. And my last question is, what's the best place to find more about you, to learn more about your programs and what you do?
I always just say, you know what? Just go to my website, turningleafsrecovery.com. The top right corner, there's a no risk, no obligation, book a conversation, right? Like, don't even try to figure out like which program might be the right one for you, because I might tell you something completely different. There's some that I start out with, we don't even start a program, everybody, you're a unique being. Allow me to allow you to be a unique being. And just have a conversation with me. If it's, if I'll be honest, I refer people also to other ways of getting to where they want to go, because I'm also, a trained case manager, and me. I think it's just really important that we pay attention to that, right? Like, if it's not a connection for me, I'm gonna make sure I, make that right introduction,
Right.
because I just think it's important, right? Like, especially like, and if somebody's listening and this is, you're looking for somebody for your kid, right? Like, or your young adult child or your sister, right? Take them into consideration. Just because you think I'm the bomb, or just because you think they need treatment, right? You got to make sure what's going to actually speak their language.
Right.
I see
Right.
people too often in the wrong treatment program. I'm like, why are you there?
Yeah.
Why are you, that doesn't even match your personality whatsoever. Well, because it's, super expensive and it's blah, blah, blah. No, it just doesn't make it right. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things to take into consideration. And if you're not trained in the area of trying to decipher what is a good program for somebody, then let somebody like myself make that distinction.
Yeah, which is very helpful. Yeah, thank you for saying that too. Thank you so much again for everything that you represent, Tricia, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now, my dear.
Thank you.